The family dinner was supposed to celebrate my father's birthday. Instead, it became the night my entire family discovered who I really was. I arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes late. Everyone was already seated around a long table. My older brother Daniel was sitting at the head. My sister Claire was beside him. My cousins were laughing and talking, but nobody looked happy to see me. Daniel glanced at his watch. "Nice of you to finally show up." I smiled. "Traffic was terrible." He shook his head. "You always have an excuse." I sat down quietly. For years, my family had treated me like the failure of the family. Daniel had a successful career. Claire owned a beautiful home. I was the quiet one, the person who never talked about money. They believed I had accomplished nothing. What they didn't know was that I had stopped trying to impress them years ago. Dinner continued. Then Daniel raised his glass. To family. Everyone raised their glasses. I didn't. Daniel noticed. "What?" "Nothing." He smiled. "You know, Dad always wanted us to be successful." I nodded. "He did." Daniel leaned back. Some of us actually listened. The table became quiet. Claire looked at me. "So, are you still working that little consulting job?" "Yes." "How much do you even make?" I smiled. "Enough." Everyone laughed. I didn't. Then Daniel leaned closer. "You should stop pretending you're doing fine." I looked at him. "Why?" "Because everyone knows you're struggling." For a moment I said nothing. They had no idea how wrong they were. They didn't know about the company. They didn't know about the properties. And they certainly didn't know why I had agreed to come to this dinner. I reached into my jacket and placed a small envelope on the table. Daniel looked at it. "What is that?" I pushed it toward him. "It belongs to all of you." Nobody moved. Claire looked nervous. Daniel picked it up. "What's inside?" I looked around the table. Then I said quietly, "You should probably read this before you order dessert." Daniel opened the envelope. His smile disappeared almost immediately, and for the first time that evening, nobody at the table was laughing. Daniel slowly pulled the papers from the envelope. First, he looked confused. Then his eyes stopped on one particular line. "What is this?" I leaned back in my chair. "Read it." Claire moved closer. Daniel looked at the document again. "This is a property transfer." "Yes." He looked at me. "Dad's company?" I nodded. The table suddenly became silent. Our father had owned a small manufacturing company before he died. For years, Daniel had told everyone that Dad had sold the company before his death because of financial problems. He had convinced the entire family that nothing valuable remained. But Daniel had been lying. The company was still operating, and I owned it. Claire stared at me. "You own Dad's company?" "Yes." Daniel laughed nervously. "That isn't possible." I placed another document on the table. "Then read this one." He picked it up. It was the official registration showing that the company had been transferred to me years earlier. Daniel's face slowly changed. "But Dad never told us." "He didn't want you to know." "Why?" I looked directly at him. "Because he knew what you were planning." Daniel stopped smiling. "What are you talking about?" I opened a second folder. Inside were copies of emails and financial records. Daniel had been contacting potential buyers and discussing the sale of several company properties. Claire looked at him. "Daniel, what is this?" He didn't answer. I turned toward him. "You told everyone the company was worthless." He remained silent. "But you were secretly trying to sell it." Daniel pushed the papers away. "This is a misunderstanding." "No." I placed another document in front of him. "This is your email." He stared at it. "You asked a buyer how quickly the warehouse could be transferred." Daniel's face became pale. "How did you get that?" "Dad gave me access to his records before he died." Claire looked shocked. "You knew about this all along?" "Yes." "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked around the table. "Because Dad asked me not to." Daniel stood up. "You've been hiding all of this from me?" I remained calm. "I wasn't hiding it from you." "Then what were you doing?" "Protecting it from you." He stared at me. For years, Daniel had believed I was a nobody. He thought I had nothing. He thought I had failed. But he had never understood that I had deliberately stayed out of the spotlight. Then I placed one final envelope on the table. Daniel looked at it. "What now?" I answered quietly. "This is what Dad left behind." Daniel opened it. His hands began to shake, because inside was a copy of our father's final will, and Daniel was about to discover why Dad had trusted me instead of him. Daniel stared at the will for several seconds. Then he looked at me. "You knew about this?" "Yes." "You knew Dad left the company to you?" "Yes." His face became red. "Why didn't you tell me?" I answered calmly. "Because Dad wanted me to wait." "Wait for what?" I looked at him. "For you to reveal who you really were." The table became completely silent. Claire slowly picked up the will. She read the first page, then the second. Her eyes widened. "Daniel!" "What?" "You should read this." He took the document from her. His hands were shaking. Our father had written a personal statement explaining his decision. He knew Daniel had been secretly trying to sell company property. He knew about the private deals. He knew Daniel had been taking money from the business. But the most painful part was the final paragraph. Our father had written that he trusted me because I had never asked him for anything. I had worked beside him. I had protected the company. And I had never tried to take what wasn't mine. Daniel finished reading. He slowly put the paper down. "You knew Dad didn't trust me." I nodded. "I knew he was worried about you." Daniel looked at me. "Then why did you come tonight?" I reached into my jacket again. "There is one more thing." I placed a small USB drive on the table. Daniel stared at it. "What is that?" "A video." Claire looked at me. "From Dad?" "Yes." Daniel's face became pale. I handed the drive to Claire. She connected it to her phone. A few seconds later, our father's face appeared on the screen. He looked older and weaker than I remembered. But his voice was clear. "If you're watching this, then I'm no longer here." Daniel looked away. Our father continued. "I know my sons have different personalities. Daniel wants success. He wants recognition. He wants control." He paused. "But I am afraid he has forgotten what success is supposed to mean." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Dad continued. Oni can build a company, but it cannot build character." The room was silent. Then Dad said something that none of us expected. "I am leaving the business to my younger son. But I am not doing this to punish Daniel." Daniel looked up. "I am doing it because I want him to understand that trust cannot be demanded." The video ended. Daniel lowered his head. For the first time that night, he looked less angry and more ashamed. I leaned toward him. "Dad didn't want me to destroy you." Daniel whispered. "Then what did he want?" I looked at him. "He wanted me to give you one final chance." Daniel looked at me. "A chance for what?" I placed another document in front of him. "A chance to earn back what you lost." He stared at the document. And then he realized that the story wasn't ending with revenge. It was just beginning. Daniel stared at the document for a long time. "A chance to earn it back?" I nodded. "You have 1 year." He looked confused. 1 year for what?" "To prove that you can be trusted." I explained the conditions. He would return the money he had taken from the company. He would stop trying to sell the properties. He would work under the company's management instead of controlling it. And most importantly, he would have to earn the trust of the people he had betrayed. Daniel looked at me. "You're serious?" "Completely." He leaned back and covered his face with both hands. For years, I had watched my brother chase money and status. Now, for the first time, he had nothing left to hide behind. He finally looked at me. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're my brother. You could take everything from me." "I could." "Then why don't you?" I looked at the empty chair where our father had once sat. "Because Dad didn't raise us to destroy each other." Daniel became quiet. The dinner ended shortly afterward. Everyone left, but Daniel stayed behind. When the restaurant was almost empty, he finally spoke. "I thought you were jealous of me." I shook my head. "I never wanted your life. I thought you hated me. I was disappointed in you. He looked down. That hurts more. It should. He nodded slowly. The next morning, Daniel started working at the company. He didn't receive a special office. He didn't have a private assistant. He didn't make decisions without approval. For the first time, he had to listen to the employees he had once ignored. First, they didn't trust him. Some refused to speak to him. Others remembered how he had treated them. Daniel accepted it. He apologized. Then he started working. Weeks turned into months. Something unexpected happened. Daniel changed. He stopped talking about money. He stopped trying to impress people. He started arriving early and leaving late. One afternoon, I saw him helping an employee carry heavy furniture across the warehouse. The employee looked surprised. Daniel simply smiled and kept working. That evening, he came into my office. I finally understand something. I looked up. What? Dad wasn't trying to choose between us. I waited. He was trying to teach me something. I smiled. What did he teach you? Daniel looked down. That having everything doesn't mean you deserve anything. For the first time in years, I felt proud of him. Not because he had become successful, but because he had finally understood why our father had made his decision. And there was still 1 month left before the year was over. 1 month later, the year was finally over. Daniel walked into my office carrying a folder. He placed it on my desk. I finished everything. I opened the folder. Inside were repayment records, employee statements, and documents showing that every dollar he had taken had been returned. I looked at him. You really did it. He nodded. I wanted to. I leaned back in my chair. Do you still want control of the company? Daniel smiled. No. I was surprised. Why not? Because I finally understand what Dad was trying to teach us. He looked around the office. This company isn't just money. It's people's lives, their families, their trust. I smiled. That sounds like something Dad would have said. Daniel laughed quietly. Then he pulled an old photograph from his pocket. It was a picture of our father standing between us when we were children. I found this in Dad's things, he said. I looked at it. On the back was a handwritten message. Success means nothing if you lose your family. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then Daniel said, I almost lost my brother for money. I looked at him. You almost lost yourself. He nodded. I know. I stood up and walked toward him. For years, I had imagined what revenge would look like. I thought it would be watching Daniel lose everything. I thought it would be proving that I was better than him. But standing there, looking at my brother, I realized I had been thinking about revenge the wrong way. The real payback wasn't destroying him. It was making him understand what he had almost destroyed. Our father had trusted me with the company, but he had also trusted me with something more important, his family. And that night, I finally understood why he had left me that responsibility. I didn't need to prove that I was successful. I didn't need my family's approval. I only needed to know that I had done the right thing. Daniel hugged me. I'm sorry. I hugged him back. No. Sometimes the person everyone calls a nobody is the person quietly holding the truth. Sometimes the person who says the least has the most to reveal. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's watching them change before it's too late. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Final Payback for more emotional family betrayal, shocking secrets, karma, revenge, and justice stories. Because every betrayal has a price. And sometimes the final payback is simply letting the truth speak for itself.